podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Bjork, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Bjork and A.W. Schultz.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Factory of the Future. I'm here with A.W. Schultz. I'm Alexandria Bjork, and today we're going to be talking all about technology. We're going to be talking about technology, the overload of options that are available. We're going to be talking about technology that does and does not work. And we're also going to be talking about the do's and don'ts when you're considering implementing new technology in your organization. This was inspired by AW's experience recently at a conference out in Dallas. And AW, why don't you walk us through kind of your experience with this technology demo and kind of what your thoughts were before and after sitting through that demo or having that conversation.
Thanks, Alexandria. I guess I keep on going down that same road, and it keeps on leading me to the same off-road. I guess is probably the analogy I want to go with. Is I was on a conference this week and gave me a chance to just see what's going on in the market and see what's new and what's changing, where the discussions are at. And, I had a chance to talk with different industries and different publications of manufacturing. However, the conversation, seems to be the same as it was a few years ago. And while we talk about technology, it's being introduced in many different facets. It's moving fast, but some of the technologies are out there it doesn't fit the mold for everybody. And I look at one example that I came across, and it was a beautiful piece of equipment. It was they marketed and displayed it just fantastic. But if you've got a manufacturing mind on you that have been in these kind of scenarios, you look at it like, okay, I don't know if these people actually done manufacturing in their life. I say a lot of engineers that know how to write code and build software, but I mean, in this particular case, this was multiple different softwares, but I had a chance to kind of really deep dive into this one because I was just seeking to understand it. For me, I'm looking for different ways of how do you motivate the employees and drive kind of change into it. And this piece of software is offering, real-time OEE, operator checklist, understanding equipment availability, OEM capabilities, log in, log out. And then giving me a demo of this piece of equipment, and so you come in, you log in, you can fill out your information you want to, whatever you want to do, custom make it any way you want. And then when the machine's running, because the light on top will go green, and I'm going, okay,
this is advanced.
This is advanced, yeah. And when it's not, it turns red, so the operators will know. And I'm like, I haven't been around a lot of equipment. We usually knew when it wasn't running. And now, granted, a luminary light does kind of show instances of an error where sometimes there could be throughput that it's waiting on product. So it might be flashing, displaying that it's waiting on product, but there's no error. So maybe that wasn't the case, but in this particular case, it just means green was good. And if you're a supervisor or something in management, or somebody who works in the industry for any amount of time, you've got a kind of good aspect of understanding if a machine is running. And when I was asking, what does this drive for motivation? He goes, well, the operator knows that if it turns red, they got to do something about it. And I was just, well, okay, that's that motivates you enough to do enough to get it to go green, but what makes them want to drive it more? And I wasn't going to press the guy anymore because I was seeing where it was going and where the software was. But I saw this as just another example of fancy software falling short, and it's another shiny tool that an organization might have that I just don't think that a lot of organizations that need that kind of. If you're mature enough to know that the machine is running or not, you don't need that kind of capability. And that's kind of where my thought was, and I was just scratching my head on that.
Yeah. I think of two things. So first thing is it goes back to the conversation we just had with Ryan from PepsiCo, right? So he talks a lot about the intuitive relationship between the factory line or the line and the employee that's operating it, right? He's like, it should be intuitive, which in one regard, green, good, red, bad, intuitive. But I would say where I would also comment is it's not advanced. I was just listening to a podcast with Elon Musk on it yesterday, and he was talking about how his son, who's autistic, has these really interesting observations about the world. And he's like, why does the world still look like 2015? And I'm hearing that in this conversation. Like, in 2015, that may have been cool, but it's 2025, soon to be 2026. And green means the line is operating, which anybody with two eyes and a couple of ears, even with earplugs, should be able to determine that the line is running, right? Like, that's not really a value add piece of technology to me. That's not really advanced technology. That just is a feature that's really, is it useful or not? I don't know. And I have the same opinion about technology too, in that I think right now the marketplace is completely flooded with technology. Basically, anybody could create a piece of tech for any application, especially now with the coding that AI is assisting with, where you can kind of like vibe code or whatever. You could vibe code something into existence. So we're going to see even more technology solutions flooding the marketplace. I think what that's going to do, it's going to overwhelm the people who are selecting the technology. But then my other thought of it is, I think the people who are responsible for technology at organizations, I think one of the conversations, everyone's worried about AI taking over the job force and blah, 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 blah. What I think is going to be very important in the next 10 years, 15 years, is the people that are overseeing the technology at organizations, right? There's only going to be more technology brought into place. What I think companies are going to run into as a problem, and I think they already are, frankly, if you ask my opinion, is that each department's putting in all this technology, but nobody's looking at how it works together as a group, right? So, if you have a bunch of siloed technologies, that's sort of cool, but it's kind of like having a bunch of Excel spreadsheets that you have to look at and try to make decisions off of. But it's like, well, we keep our inventory on this sheet, we keep our sales stuff on this sheet, we keep our expenses on this sheet. It's like, well, what is the full picture? Well, we don't know. We'd have to manually put all of this information together because it's fed from so many different systems. So I think leaders need to really start placing an emphasis on the people running the technology at their company. I think that's a little light, especially in the manufacturing space. I think it's more of an afterthought than kind of a prized pedestaled role, right? And it needs to be, right? We're thinking about how ERPs function with all the different technology that works within an organization, specifically a manufacturing organization. There's a lot of different technology that companies could put in place. The other thing I'm thinking about that people should be really having on their radar and working through in their mind before they put new technology in is, number one, I think employees at organizations are system fatigued. There's too many different systems that employees have to work within. Find a way to make those systems communicate and minimize the use of systems for employees. Number two, you're going to get much better information the more consolidated or integrated your technology is. And if I'm a tech company, I would be looking at, where are my partnerships? It's kind of like everyone talks about the political team situation that's going on. I think it could be in the future that there's like just as much a team for technology that you're on, and then those things are vertically stacked and naturally designed to be integrated, and it's like it's like a tech ecosystem to solve these different problems. So I think tech leaders should be the ones that are making the technology should start looking for those strategic partnerships. So that's like, oh, what are the problems our customers are having, and then how do we build an ecosystem of tech that supports them, that's integrated and useful and intuitive to the end user. That's my kind of 2 cents on the topic.
I guess I want to make a comparison to technology and then bringing it down to like the household. So you think about your kitchen, and in your kitchen, you've probably accumulated some pieces of equipment some appliances that you saw the opportunity there, but then it just didn't follow through. And I think about like my wife and I got married, and we register for all these I'm using equipment. If it's appliances, and it's like, wow, we can get this and that. And like, do we really need it? I mean, I've got a really expensive KitchenAid sitting on the kitchen table, and like, we don't use it. It's just like anything is small batches, and it'd just be easier not to make a mess with it and bring it forward. And I think about that when you're looking at bringing in different equipment and different pieces of software, is like, is it really solving your problem? And I like that, bringing it down to first principles. Like, what, before you think about, before you go to like a conference, like, what do you want to go see at this conference? And do you want to be dazzled by the possible capabilities that somebody that has never worked in the industry but knows how to sell it is going to be telling you what you want and what you need, versus going in there, understanding, being over there looking for something that's very specific. And for me, that's kind of one of my takeaways, and the advice that I would give. When you start out looking for capabilities, there's, especially in the manufacturing communities, I think there's a lot to choose from, and it kind of can be overwhelming. And to understand is like, there's so many out there. You can almost ask for the guarantee, and if the guarantee sounds pretty lucrative, to me, I'm not going to say it's too good to be true, but it's really that they've got confidence in it's going to meet the demands of their consumers. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, the other thing I would add to that, and I think this is something that flipping the script from, or perspective from, my earlier comment of being from like a tech provider, over the tech stack in your organization. If you're in the middle of a selection process, I think part of the due diligence has to be talking to customers similar to yours. And I think similar to your application, right? Like, I think there's a bunch of different technology that can fit into a couple of different industries, right? So, and manufacturing is very niche. What works in the industrial packaging manufacturing landscape is not what you would find working in like a food manufacturing landscape, right? So those are 2 totally different applications. They're going to have 2 totally different specific niche technology. I would say, I'm going to finish this thought and then I'm going to turn over to you. So I would say, ask the technology provider to connect you with 1 to 2 customers who are like you in your application, and then see how they're using the software. And you can even do that after you're already using the software. And I think that's another opportunity tech companies have, is to bring their customers together for forums, best practices, and inspired new ways of using the old technology or existing technology.
I had an executive roundtable this week, and I had a company president for a supplier for the automotive industries. And we were talking about, I always like to talk about wins and opportunities, especially with Industrial 4.0. And in this particular case, he brought forth a win, but it was also still an opportunity. And it had to do with incorporating an ERP system that was going global. And when I hear that, I'm like, okay. And I asked, what does global mean? And then, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, he says, well, it was in China, Japan, Brazil, and in the US. And then I've never done work in Brazil, nor in China or Japan, but I have done some work with individuals in Taiwan. Not to say they're the same, but we start talking about culture. And I say, you got to tell me about this culture. I mean, how did you, from a project management perspective, make the sale on it? And trying to bring this back into the technology was needed is that you had to have somebody locally that had the ownership and the buy-in into it, and it was solving a problem on it. And like you said, it solved a lot of our problems, but there was different levels of they had to define it of different levels of success, because some areas they were still struggling. They were running it, but they had almost created another position just so they could keep up with the other different parts of the world that were more embraced by it. So I bring that full circle because it's again, the technology that comes in is it may work in some organizations, but may work in others. But you need to know your customers, which is your frontline workers or your stakeholders.
And I think what you said was pretty brilliant as well. I mean, what I heard in what you just described, the challenge that this guy was facing was different maturity levels across the continents, right? And how do we apply one technology solution globally to one organization with varying tech mature or digital maturity? And how do we create the crawl, walk, run application and use of this technology across varying levels of readiness? So that's pretty exciting to me that they were able to get that done. I'd be interested to see how that shapes up.
Yeah.
What else do we want to? I mean, one thing I would add really quickly too is I think just like people are realizing or experiencing is there's just an overload of information. I think we're just getting started with the overload of technology solutions that are going to be available. And I think that's going to be really interesting to watch it play out. I think there's an incredible opportunity for people who are, interested in thinking, how can we use technology to XYZ, whatever our goal they're trying to accomplish. I also think that people who are creating technology are going to have to get ultra niche, right? Because creating technology is becoming increasingly easier. I think the industry-wide or broad brushstrokes technology is going to be outdated in the next 10 years. I think there needs to be, and there will be, technology that is so hyper niche focused that those are going to be the technologies that replace this broad brushstrokes where the customer has to kind of like squeeze their square little industry, self into this round peg. I think technology is going to diverge into very niche specific tech solutions that are designed specific for those specific industries and subsets of industries, right? There's so many different ways things are done, even within one single industry. I think the subsets are going to be where the technology solutions are going to have to start focusing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And that's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Any other thoughts? Is there anything you left unsaid about was there any tech that you saw at the conference that was just like, wow, that is the future? Or
No.
were you like, this is very 2015?
I didn't even see any robots. I'm kind of disappointed. I love seeing robots. Just they had a display called the Smart Manufacturing Expo within it, and it was just all software. So yeah, I was a little bit kind of disappointed.
I guess that makes a question. So how do you see, like you said, just software, right? So do you see a future in which like software, well, obviously it exists today, so let me just back that up. But like where software companies are going to become just as much hardware companies, or do you see those things getting farther apart or more close together in the future?
Close together.
More close.
You look at Microsoft. I mean, up to when Bill Gates started, Microsoft, everyone thought it was about hardware, and then he figured out how to sell it as software.
Yeah.
And story told. You think about the Tesla vehicles. I mean, they upgrade themselves on a continuous basis, and it's always making itself more efficient. Software within hardware.
So what we're both predicting then is that hardware and software are going to become even more intertwined and one and the same versus more separate as they kind of have been. And I recently heard that prediction too, that it's predicted that there won't be apps in the future. There won't be operating systems in the future. That was a prediction Elon had about like how phones will be used and things of that nature. He's like, I don't even think we'll have apps in the near to medium future.
Well, I'd have to get my head around that. I can't process that right now. That's interesting.
Yeah, his thought is that AI is just going to feed you whatever it thinks you want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting prediction, and I think that kind of fits in with what we're talking about here too. Is I would be interested to see, like, that's obviously on the consumer side, but you'd have to think that would apply somewhere in the manufacturing landscape and in the industrial space. So how does that fit into it? I don't know. I mean, you could think about, I don't know. It'd be interesting. I'm interested to see how that shapes things, though.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right.
Are we clocking out?
We're clocking out like finished goods.
We're out of here like finished goods. See you guys.
Bye.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.